Keep it coming. Chat about how much wood you burn in this.
What you see in front of you in the tender here will last us probably about a day and a half.
A day and a half of scrap wood, huh? So what size would you call this this rig? What size would you call this?
It's about 6.5 tons when there's no water in it, so it's considered an industrial locomotive.
And what's the designation on it? What do you call it other than porter?
It'd be an 040T.
040T. So what does that mean?
The T means tank. It's a tank locomotive.
Uh-huh.
So on the boiler,
yeah, look at that. If you're just joining us, we're live on Chad's Porter in downtown, well, almost downtown Nevada City, California, at the Nevada County Narrow Gauge Railroad Museum. I want to give you a special update on the old number 5 narrow gauge locomotive, but right now we're just taking a spin through the meadow on this antique Porter, which is about, what year was this thing? About a turn of the century?
1889.
1889 Porter that was originally used in a brickyard in Sacramento, California, and owned by this family for many, many years, and they got it restored and running here some years ago. Look at this crossing here. Yeah. Are we going to go this way? We're not going to go for the jungle crossing? Look at that. So, of course, being a wood-fired, steam-powered locomotive, we're sitting on the water here. Here's an old water pump right here that provides the water pressure. In here's the water. And
Stoke it up so we can get up the hill.
oh yeah, we got to get enough steam to get up the hill. We got to stoke up the fire for that. It's a grade going back up. And on this water, on this here water pump, they can hook this hose up to it, and it turns it into a fire hose, basically, if you start catching the woods on fire with your wood-fired, steam-powered locomotive. Chad, walk us through some of those controls right there that we're looking at.
Throttle,
Okay,
boiler for the cylinders,
okay,
tricocks for the water level in the boiler,
okay,
fire door where you throw your fuel.
okay.
See that?
Yeah.
Water glass for the level of water in the boiler.
All right.
Injector, blower, and he's got pretty much the same valves on that side. Brakes, water, and the fire pump.
And what do we got for instrumentation? What's the big gauge up there?
That's our boiler pressure gauge. We're currently running at about 80 pounds,
Okay.
which should get us up the hill.
And what's she rated for?
100.
100. Yep. Okay, good. That's right up there. And the water level looks pretty good there. It's over half, almost 3/4 full, it looks like. And this amount of water, you fill this thing up, that'll last you about as long as this firewood will, or
Oh,
even
more
longer?
than that,
Even
yeah.
more than? Good.
Yeah.
So you run out of wood before you run out of water, which
Yep.
is a good thing.
Yep.
That all come through loud and clear? Can you see all that? Yeah, this isn't exactly high-speed rail from the here in the U.S. So we're going to take a shot and try and run this up the grade here. And then we'll
Everyone
probably...
keep your eyes out for any smoldering embers or any
Okay.
little smoky fires.
Yep,
We can put them out real quick as long as we know where they're at.
good. We're not into fire season yet here, so we're safe so far. But a little later on, it can be a problem. And we've got a good spark
We don't come
arrestor
down this
on top
far
of that
yet, no matter when the fire's
chimney, but
going. It's just not, it's just dangerous.
this will be a good run up this hill. It'll be just enough power to get itself up the hill.
Keep this thing up on the rock.
Of course, in Sacramento, it was used on a straight and level terrain in a brickyard, moving bricks all around a yard. And this is really relatively steep terrain for a porter like this coming up here.
You're not even open all the way. That's
where, Chad, are you reading that 80 pounds or 80 pounds there? Okay.
We're climbing the hill with no problems.
There we go.
Hot embers coming down. Watch out for the hot embers.
Yeah. We're watching out the back here in case anything lights up. We got a huge ladybug hatch going on out here right now. You can hear it? You can hear the engine okay? Yeah. Steam locomotive. It's just kind of huffing along gently here. The grade is yet to come up and around the corner here. What do you think, Pepe? The old way of getting to school. Did you hear that part? It takes them about 2 hours. Jenny was asking how long it takes to get this thing fired up for the first run, and it's about a 2-hour long process to get things warmed up enough to begin to get it running. That's it. Petticoat Junction.
What's that?
Here's some of the projects they're working on here with the Narrow Gauge Railroad Museum. Some of the logging exhibits.
Pirates.
Look at those ladybugs. They are out by the bajillions today. The sound of progress, yes.
Trees coming through.
All right, there's some low-hanging trees here. We've had a lot of damage behind us here from the storms in December last year, that wet, heavy snowstorm. The museum has just been working all spring long, just like out on our motorcycle tracks, clearing all the damage, down trees from the storms in December. And back behind here is still a big mess. Jungle Cruise. Hey, I looked at that most recent video of that 172 crashing on the bridge in Florida. I was wondering why did he choose to land on the bridge? Why didn't he choose to land on the water near the shore? Would have been a safer bet, I think. We got to do some switchology up here before we head up the steep grade. Any fish in there, Pete? Go back and get the fishing pole.
Got up another passenger left. Okay.
Time to do some switchology.
Hey, Bruce, this is Wes and Chad. Bruce and I
Hi, Bruce.
I'm gonna
How you doing?
I'm gonna step off here and trade you out. I'm gonna follow you guys up the hill.
Okay.
You kids, no, you can stay on there.
Have a seat, Bruce. Hey, I'll see you back up there.
Take a look at this porter here. Check this out. So we're gonna come up here, and he's gonna switch that switch, go back there, switch that switch, and then get going up the grade this way. What you call a genuine switchback, like back in your motorcycle days. So Chad's gonna go up here and make this switch now. So you keep it locked up so the kids don't switch it on you.
Precisely.
Uh-huh. And just move that
Get that?
rail right over. Yep.
Got it? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we're rolling live right
All
now.
right.
And what do you call this part in here that
That's
you just
the guardrail.
the guardrail? Okay.
These are the points. That's the guardrail.
Uh-huh.
And that part where they come together up there is the frog,
Uh-huh.
where the two rails meet. Right there at that
That kind of
junction.
Y intersection up here.
It's called the frog.
Uh-huh.
So what we do is we check to make sure everything's lined up, there's no rocks in the joints, and everything looks good, and then we give the engineer the okay to come ahead and roll over it.
Uh-huh. And you guys are all using standard engineering signaling.
Yep. I believe it's SP signals. I don't know for sure, but it's whatever Les uses on the railroad. That means forward for him.
Okay. And that other signal was backwards, where you were rolling your hand backwards. Nice switching. Yeah, that's right. 2 hours to get it running. Yeah, and a bigger locomotive, of course, would even take more. Now he's just letting her roll.
And we'll line it back.
500 gallons of water capacity. Now he's going to switch this back over.
And that's it.
He's got it switched. All right, I'm going to try and run and keep up with these guys. I better get a head start here, Timmer.
They got to go all the way around so they can turn it around, I think. Yeah.
Oh,
They gotta
okay.
come all the way around, turn it around again, and then go back up. So they're going to actually go right through that cut in the meadow there.
Oh, okay. Well, we got a few minutes before the next bit of scintillating action up the grade here.
Never come, never go.
That's right. Never come, never go. This is Tim O'Brien, world famous aviation photographer and high school friend and a fellow air show announcer. You've been volunteering here for years. You were instrumental in getting number 5 back up here to Nevada County.
Yeah, I was on the original crew back in 1983 that started the operation, and then in 1985, through negotiation with John Christensen and Universal Studios, we brought the engine back to Nevada County.
Yeah, so we're gonna go look at that. We'll do a second live feed up there. I think you're gonna drag number 5 out in the sunshine today.
Yep.
Okay, and then we'll get a better view of that. Number 5 is the premier locomotive that ran this community from 1876.
Yeah, Lake Tahoe Railway, 1875 to 1899, purchased by Nevada County narrow gauge. In 1899, ran to 1940.
Right at the beginning of World War II, and that was the end of the railroad here in Nevada County. And it connected the communities of Colfax, California, which is where the Transcontinental Railroad came through, and they ran this narrow gauge railroad up to here, to Grass Valley and Nevada City, California. Nevada City right here was the terminus for the Nevada County Narrow Gauge Railroad, a total of what, about 14 miles or so?
23.
23 miles, holy smokes. And back and forth they went, and of course their big claim to fame is they never got robbed.
Yeah, more than $750 million worth of gold. $1 million.
$750 or a billion?
A billion.
A billion,
Dollars worth of gold.
This is heart of the gold country. I mean, there's an example of a mine shaft right there.
Yeah, and see, not even a robbery attempt because all the gold was in bullion form, and if you got it off the train, you weren't going to get very far. With
That's
it.
too big and heavy because the gold had to come from out of the mines here in Nevada County and get moved down to the mint in San Francisco. Right.
But the main reason for the railroad is when they discovered hard rock mining here in 1850. That's gold embedded in quartz. They needed heavy, heavy machinery to get that out of the ground, and the only way they could get it was with a railroad. And so it was local investors, people who owned sawmills, mines, proprietors, city people, they got together and funded the railroad. There was no government subsidy of the Nevada County Narrow Gauge.
There was shareholders and stock and the whole works on that. Yeah. I wonder, did the stockholders do better on the railroad than on the mines? The mines were kind of a...
They ultimately did.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had a couple of ups and downs, mostly
Yeah.
in the 1920s.
Yeah.
But in the end, they all made money off the railroad.
Ah. Very good. And tore up the tracks, and what's left of it is here at the Nevada County Narrow Gauge Museum. And you can still see some of the old roadbed. And Tim showed me around over the years where some of that roadbed is today. And today it's all chopped up with driveways and trails and that sort of thing, but it's still out there.
It is.
Now, are they coming or are they going?
Never come, never go.
That's right. Looks like they're coming back up this way. Okay, stand by for some red hot hill climbing action. Oh, you gonna take another lap around the pasture?
Because they got to get turned around. So we're gonna, there's that switches, so we're going to go through the middle of the meadow right over there. In fact, we can cross
okay.
that bridge there and you can watch them go right through there. And then go back into here and then charge it.
Yeah, this is the one thing about live feed is you can't just pause and fast forward to the rest of it.
Oh, you're live right now.
Yeah, we're live. Yeah, yeah. There's a few folks watching.
Yeah. This engine, you probably got the history on it. 1889 Porter locomotive.
Sacramento Brick.
Sacramento Brick Company.
Yeah.
Ordered from Huntington and Hopkins in Old Sacramento in 1889. Served its entire life there, and was acquired by Les Wilmotter's father in 1946.
Uh-huh.
He restored it, and he's the second owner of it, and they've kept it running, the whole time. So.
Wow. And they can keep it here at the museum and kind of like hangar it here and maintain it here and operate it here too.
Yeah, play with it.
Yeah, keep it going. This is all in California. Yeah, we're here in Nevada City, California, Grass Valley, Nevada City, right in the heart of the gold country. In 1849, the world rushed in here, and this place was more populated than much of the rest of the United States for a brief period of time while everybody was getting the gold. And then it went from that gold rush to a real long-term industrial gold mining, and some of the most successful gold mining in all of
The world.
the world
The
was
pioneers,
done here. And of course we used a lot of we had a lot of folks from England. The tin miners from Cornwall came over and really helped us get the hard rock mining going correctly here, because during the gold rush it was just a mad dash and mostly placer mining and panning and any kind of way that you could pick the gold out by hand. But eventually it developed into big time industrial gold mining. For example, that Idaho Maryland mine produced millions and millions of dollars. And what do you think the tunneling miles and miles?
Well, just under the city limits of Grass Valley alone,
Uh-huh.
it's like 153 miles of tunnels going down 11,000 feet below the surface.
11,000 feet down and 150 miles worth of tunnels.
And it's all hard rock, granite shelf type stuff. And the Idaho Maryland mine, the Empire mine, the North Star mine were the three richest gold mines in all the western United States. And as a result of that, and the pioneering of the technology that was done here, this area never saw the Great Depression of the 1930s.
There was no
In fact,
depression here.
It thrived.
Yeah.
So it's kind of God's country. They, in addition to gold, you have unlimited resources of timber, the growing orchards, producing food, cattle. Everything is very self-contained here. It was a very self-sustaining community in addition to being a big gold producer.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't until the mines closed. I mean, they kind of kept going somewhat through World War II, but they pretty well shut down at World War II.
Yeah, well, there was a government order that put an end to mining as a non-essential war effort industry, and that's when everything shut down here. And the railroad suddenly became more valuable for its scrap value than an operating railroad. Nonetheless, many of the locomotives, cars, and equipment here were shipped off to other railroads, many of them in Pearl Harbor to work in the Navy yards, and some of them went to Alaska to make a strategic narrow gauge railroad, which became the White Pass and Yukon, to get supplies to thwart a Japanese invasion coming from Alaska. And so some of that equipment still survives, and some of it we've been bringing back here. Outside of that, I lost my train of thought.
That happens to
But
us
you
at
know
our
this-
age.
yeah.
Thanks, Berto.
Yeah.
So what happened to all the narrow gauge stuff? And it got scattered around during the war effort, and a lot of it got scrapped for the war effort, and it was non-railroading type
Yeah, so
scrap.
in 1942, the government shut down mining, and the railroad was basically dispersed, scrapped. Bob Payne
Yeah.
used to tell the story that a lot of the rail, because of its high carbon content, was used to make razor blades because it was very hard steel.
Ah, huh.
And other equipment got scrapped. By 1943, it was all gone, and we're slowly finding bits and pieces and bringing it back.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
engine number 5, which you're going to see,
Yeah.
it was sold to Universal Studios for use in the John Wayne movie The Spoilers.
Right.
And from there, it was kept at Universal Studios and used in most of the old TV westerns and movies and everything like that that they did all during the 1960s. And it was in that back lot where we found it and brought it back to the
You were able to bring it back. I remember that was about 1983 or so. You guys were doing that,
Yeah, 85, we brought the engine back up here.
and you were able to put it on the back of a Robinson lowboy logging rig and bring
Yeah,
it home.
We had 2 Cozad trailers. One brought the engine at 27 tons and the other brought the timber. And then we brought a number of freight cars up from there too. We also got the railroad rolling stock collection and brought it up here.
And that engine has not been steamed up in years, and you're about to steam it up for the first time.
That's correct. Probably the last time it steamed was maybe 1967, 68 for
Yeah.
Universal.
Yeah. And when they used it in the movies, how did they run that in the movies? Did they just steam it up just enough to produce a little smoke, and then they'd kind of tow it around or push it around?
They did both. In the Spoilers and a couple of other movies, the engine was in original condition like it left Grass Valley, in full boiler pressure and everything.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of one of those, they actually rolled it on its side, did some damage to it, and sat in the back lock for a while. They reboilered it and rebuilt it in 1960, but even though they had a full boiler, they were putting in propane for fuel, enough to get the pistons and the steam and
Yeah.
the whistle to blow. And then they had a Wisconsin engine mounted under a passenger car with a chain that propelled the passenger car, and that's what they moved the engine
Move the train with.
in and out of the studios with. So.
And did they use that, you figure, on the movie sets too, when they needed the train to be moving? You'd fire up that Wisconsin,
That's
maybe?
correct,
Or
yeah.
I'd have to, the
Yeah,
sound guy would have to change that up
And
a
they had
little.
a propane tank hidden in the Hollywood tender, which is actually parked right over there.
Uh-huh.
And they had a phony, wood box and everything all built to conceal that.
Uh-huh.
And when we were bringing that up from Universal on Highway 5, the top half of that blew off somewhere.
Yeah.
It was there in Bakersfield, and it wasn't there in
It didn't make it all the way up.
Stockton. Yeah.
And then when you were rummaging around down there, you found a bunch of Hollywood blanks and that sort of thing
Oh
still?
yeah, in the cab of the engine we found Hollywood, 45 blanks and 38 blanks and all that. I got a whole box of those.
Ah, neat. And then if you go on one of these trail hikes with Tim today and look at these old rail beds, especially down there towards Colfax, we've still been able to find spikes
Yeah,
from the Nevada
spikes.
County Narrow Gauge Railroad. They're only about that long or so. Yeah.
Yeah, spikes, tie plates, occasional freight car parts. Yeah.
Because the rail that you guys got here, this is much bigger than would have been.
No,
That's about the right size rail.
In the very early days, they started out with 35-pound rail, and that's how many pounds per yard.
35 pounds per yard.
Later on, they went to 45-pound rail, and when the railroad was actually, before it was torn out, they were actually going to 90-pound rail because they had much heavier locomotives. The freight car loads were heavier, cars were bigger, and so they upgraded.
Even
over
on the narrow
time.
gauge, all the way up
Even
to 90.
That's correct.
Well,
yeah.
what kind of gauge or weight are we looking at here?
About 60-pound rail here.
60 pound per
60
yard.
pounds per yard. And most of this track was donated by the Union Pacific Railroad of what used to be the old Yuba City branch of the Sacramento Northern.
Mm-hmm.
And the catch was that we had to go down and tear it all out and haul it all back up here. So
It ain't easy working on the railroad, is it, Timmer?
everything is heavy.
Everything is heavy. And you guys spent I was explaining earlier in the broadcast, you guys were spent all springtime cleaning this mess up with all the trees and stuff.
Yeah, we
here.
had 24 trees come down across the tracks, and big mess. It took us about a month to get that. And we also lay all of our own track, drive spikes and tires and haul everything around down here.
Oh, good.
So, you don't need a gym when you're around here.
That's right. He got me into pounding spikes one day, and He hasn't seen me since.
I never, yeah. Blazing Saddles came to mind.
That's right. Should give me one of them good old work songs. Yeah, it's harder. You start getting winded on these hand pounding those spikes in, and you start missing pretty quick. Now you're putting big divots in the rail. So, all right. Well, we'll probably wrap this one up here, and then we'll get another stream going once we get number 5 out a little later on this afternoon here, and show you the actual number 5 narrow gauge locomotive engine.
Yeah, you got to jump on when they're going up the hill. That's when this thing's really working.
Working hard. Yeah, I wanted to capture it as it's steaming up the hill, maybe chasing behind it, or should we get?
Could do that.
Yeah,
I could actually put you in the truck, and we can get most of the way.
just kind of following alongside it.
Sure.
And get some cool footage
Just
of that.
kinda hang out in the back of the truck.
Okay, cool. We'll be right back. We're gonna cut this live broadcast off, and then we'll get set up for that, and I'll get it going again. See you here. Too much fun on Saturday afternoon. The Tim and Juan Show. Hey, by the way, we're going to be at the Truckee Air Show, July 22nd.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, Truckee Air Show. See you there. We'll be right back.